IVM.
Welcome to All Things Policy, a daily podcast supported by Pragati, a flagship media initiative of the Takshashila Institution. We're a bunch of policy nerds based in Bengaluru, and we like to bring a fresh perspective to Indian affairs and an Indian perspective to global affairs. So grab a cup of coffee, sit back, and join us for today's chat.
Hello and welcome to another episode of All Things Policy. In today's episode, we'll be talking about the rising cases of Omicron, a variant of COVID-19. I have with me Dr. Harshit Kukreja, a colleague from the Takshashila Institution, joining me today. He's a doctor by training and a research analyst at this institution. Welcome, Harshit.
Hi, Priyal.
Now, before we begin, let me give our listeners a short introduction to our institute. The Takshashila Institution is an independent, non-partisan think tank and a school of public policy. We have education programs lasting 1 semester and 1 year that are tailored specifically for people like you. They're all online and you can take them from anywhere in the world. Admissions are now open for our 12-week graduate certificate programs in public policy, defense and foreign affairs, technology and policy, and health and life sciences. There is also a postgraduate program in public policy, which is a 48-week program. These programs begin from the 15th of January 2022, and the deadline for these applications are 8th of January 2022. Now, getting back to the topic we have today, since the time Omicron was detected, we have been constantly told that it is quite mild. And when this variant was first sequenced, and especially since the first suggestions that the cases flooding the Gauteng province in South Africa were overwhelmingly mild, epidemiologists have taken care to warn that even if a new strain proves less severe, the ultimate toll could still be significantly greater than earlier, as well as more pathogenic variants given Omicron's high rate of infection. Now, this makes the question of just how virulent Omicron is, and that question becomes enormously important. Unfortunately, the earlier data that we have found is about Omicron is bit all over the place. Now, in the first week of January, the first major study of South Africa data suggested overall a 29% reduction in illness severity, which is a notable drop, but not nearly enough to make up for a rate of speed, which is 3 times faster than Delta, the fastest spreading of the earlier variants. Now, according to December 20th, 2021 report on The Hindu, Director of Medical Education K. Ramesh Reddy said the health condition of all the patients of Omicron is stable and they only have very mild symptoms. However, senior doctors have stressed that it is imperative to maintain all the COVID-19 precautions since the variant might become more virulent if it gets more chance to replicate. The question I want to ask to you, Harshit, is that we know that variants have been originating since the COVID-19 pandemic has started, right? Now, when we talk about these variants, we know that the Delta variant had come sometime last year and we had a heavy second wave. So how do these variants originate? So how did specifically the Omicron variant originate? And is this kind of variations in viruses, are they very common and how do they happen?
Yeah, Priyal, so it's a very important question, understanding how variants originate. So we use DNA as our genetic material, viruses use RNA as their genetic material. So when they replicate, this process is prone to errors, and these errors lead to mutations in the RNA. That is their genetic blueprint of how they are made, their cell structure, and everything else. So it's basically a feature and not a bug. I'll explain how. When these mutations they accumulate, the mutations which give them some kind of survival advantage get the virus with the mutations which give them some kind of survival advantage get reproduced more due to the natural selection process, and these lead to newer variants of the virus. So in the case of Omicron is said to be originated from a immunocompromised patient in South Africa. This patient has been identified as the patient zero.
Okay, so what you're trying to say is that these mutations are sort of like survival of the fittest kind of thing, right? Now, is it common for these viruses to mutate and give rise to different variants, or is this very specific to COVID-19 virus itself?
So yeah, it's kind of a survival of the fittest thing. So it is quite common, and it is seen in a lot of viruses. It's seen in a lot of organisms. The more the virus spreads, the more the probability of the variants increases. We have been seeing this in COVID. We have previously seen this in SARS, and there have been organizations which had been tracking SARS variant and before that avian flu and everything else, and MERS in between. Yeah, and there's a new variant discovered in France very recently by an institute called IHU. It is said to be more infectious than the Omicron variant, although WHO has not yet designated it as a variant of concern and has not added it to their list. But it is a common process, and new variants will keep on coming till they have an opportunity to reproduce and spread.
Right. Thank you so much for that information, Harshit. Now, for example, now England has been having more than 1 lakh cases a day since I think Omicron was detected. But there have been reports that they say that it is not considered extremely fatal. Now, US also has reported 1 million cases in the past 24 hours. So what is considered mild for them could be potentially fatal for India, right? As India does not have more than quite a large population of fully vaccinated individuals. So what do you have to say about that?
So our situation is very different as compared to UK's. UK has vaccinated almost all of its population with double doses and has given booster doses to at least 60% of its population. We have been only able to vaccinate 60% of our adult population with double doses, even though we had a target to fully vaccinate everyone by 31st of December of 2021. And there's data coming in from the UK which says that around 90% of the hospitalizations that we are seeing in UK are the people who didn't get the booster doses. So in India, we have not yet started giving out booster doses. Booster doses will be given out on 10th. So we can expect to see much more hospitalizations as compared to UK. In the peak of the second wave in the last year, the maximum daily case load was around 4.5 lakhs. So the latest models for India predict a load of around 16-20 lakhs per day at the peak. And that with our poor vaccination and our population and our less equipped healthcare system, we can expect very different results than what UK has been saying. And one thing UK is trying to do is they're trying to not shut their economy, and instead they're trying to vaccinate its population as fast as they can. And they are also working on other public health measures such as testing, isolating. If we don't want what people faced economically in the first and second lockdown, we'll have to work really hard on vaccination and the proven and tested public health measures.
Right. Thank you so much for that. So before we move on to our next question, we will take a short break and we will be right back.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to Anil Vishwanathan of Mondelez India. They discuss the beloved Cadbury brand and its campaigns over the years. On Speakeasy, Dheeraj is in conversation with Ranjit Pratap Singh, the CEO and co-founder of Pratilipi. Hey, that's our parent company. They talk about how Ranjit tapped into the need for non-English storytelling content and created a company with over 30 million readers worldwide. On Smarter with Sid, resolved to have better resolutions. Sid tells us how understanding the difference between objectives and outcomes can be liberating. On Tere Mere Raaste, Keshav takes us to Dubai, world of skyscrapers, world-class infrastructure, glittering malls, and massive boulevards. On the Life Manifesto, Zarina goes over the concept of self-abandonment. She explains the do's and don'ts of dealing with it. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. If you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, do tell a friend. The word of mouth absolutely is essential to us. Don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms that you've been listening to. And also, I'd like to ask everybody to check us out on YouTube. We have a number of channels going. You can find all of them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch Kuber, and Intel. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Hello and welcome back to the podcast. We were talking about Omicron variant, and previously we were talking about how England is having more than 1 lakh cases per day, as well as US has been having more than 1 million cases a day, and yet they are still considered mild because UK in particular has been focusing more on vaccinating its population rather than shutting down its economy. Now, we know that we have been told that the prediction for the third wave for India is sometime in February. And we know how during the second wave, our entire medical and health system was overburdened with doctors and nurses, everyone working overtime and all of that. So given all of what we've seen in the past, do you think, Harshit, that India is ready for a third wave? And if and when there is a third wave happening, how do we tackle these concerns? Can you please shed us some light onto that matter?
So sadly, we are in a very similar circumstance as we were preceding the second wave. Pre the second wave in 2021, there were state elections. There was the Kumbh Mela, which had an impact on the rise of the cases. This time also, we have 5 states which are lined up for elections. I think Allahabad High Court last month made an observation and recommended to the government that they should postpone the elections. The government is not interested in doing that right now. We are also not scaling up our capacity. We are not scaling up our capacity to do COVID testing. We are not opening up COVID-only hospitals. In the last wave, we started opening up hospitals when we started losing a lot of people. We started opening our healthcare system. We started opening temporary DRDO, Army, NGO-supported hospitals when the patients started dying outside the hospital gates and people were running for beds, for oxygen. This also led to a loss of non-COVID care to patients. Anybody who needed any kind of non-COVID care, emergency, non-emergency, was not able to get it. This led to all those infections which would have been minor to spread. All those hernias which could have been operated at that time now turned into strangulated hernias. All those patients who needed dialysis were not able to get it. Non-COVID patients suffered a lot. There are estimates which say that there were a lot of non-COVID deaths also because patients were not able to access care, even emergency care. We are doing what we did last time. Even Delhi, there's a notification a few hours ago which says that Delhi has ordered hospitals, nursing homes with more than 50 beds to keep 40% of their beds as reserved for COVID patients. This is what we did in the last wave. Instead of increasing beds and putting those beds for COVID patients, we are taking our existing capacity and dividing that into COVID and non-COVID care. And finally, when we'll be near the peak, there would be no services available to non-COVID patients. What we can do right now is set up all that infrastructure, which according to our demands, according to various models we have seen, we should set up all those oxygen plants, which we set up post the second wave. We should stock up all the steroids, all the medicines we know work against COVID. We should do that before it is too late, before the situation which we saw last year comes again. And there's also a very interesting thing that people do not understand is that hospital healthcare facilities are not only beds or ventilators. They are the healthcare workforce, the doctors, the nurses, the technicians. If you recruit doctors and recruit nurses and technicians and everybody else and tell them to work together from the next day, that would not be a very smooth operation. People take time to learn the flow and they take time to learn each other's strength and where others need help. So it even takes time to know where anything is kept in the ward. So If we have to prepare for that, we have to recruit people now. We have to set up our temporary COVID-only hospitals now before the third wave comes sometime in late January or February. So there's this narrative which we have discussed earlier, which says that the Omicron virus is a weak virus. This can be very dangerous, particularly for our country, due to our low vaccination numbers and the virus's increased infectivity. This kind of messaging from the government can lead the people to not take this threat seriously. And there's also fatigue among people. They are tired of wearing masks, they are tired of social distancing. It's not pleasant, nobody wants to do it. But if added with that fatigue and the wrong messaging from the government, people will not be taking public health measures very seriously. There is also, we put price caps on items such as medications, sanitizers. We did this last time. The intention of the policy appears to be noble, and it appears that the government is doing something against the people who are trying to amass money, profit in a pandemic. But this policy leads to our loss. I'll explain you how. So if you tell someone that you can sell a 100 ml sanitizer bottle at 20 rupees, then the manufacturers who are not able to sell that bottle at 20 but are able to sell that at 30, and rupees 30 for a 100 ml bottle makes sense to them, would not enter the market. So the government has capped the sanitizer at 20. You cannot sell, the manufacturer cannot sell that bottle at 30 rupees, at least not legally. So the government, through its policy, has not allowed manufacturers to enter the market to supplement the supply and provide sanitizers to the people who need them. This supply demand mismatch, this distortion to the market is good for no one. Instead, the government should make it easier for manufacturers to make sanitizers quickly and efficiently via streamlining the existing regulatory machinery. We also did not allow mRNA vaccines. We did not allow Pfizer and Moderna to come into our country. We have allowed them per se, but there's a thing called indemnity, which the vaccine manufacturers argue, these US-based companies argue, that they should not be held liable for any loss of life or any liability that occurs due to use of their vaccines. The government is not agreeing to this, even though more than 150 countries have agreed and have allowed Pfizer to get into the country and have bought vaccines from Pfizer. Why am I arguing for mRNA vaccines is because first, they can be readily tweaked for new variants, and second, they provide better coverage, better than COVID Shield and Covaxin for corona, and they can supplement in our effort for vaccination.
Yeah, thank you so much, Harshit. That was actually very insightful. From what you said, it clearly shows that India needs to do a lot more for it to be ready for the third wave, right? Now, recently, going about what India is currently doing, I think Delhi had put up an action plan to deal with the rise in cases and also to tackle the potential third wave in the country. Now, based on whatever they had put as an action plan, how effective do you think that plan is? And do you think it is going to, help us in tackling this third wave and keep the infections at minimum and, reduce the burden on the healthcare system in Delhi at least?
Yeah. So Delhi has given out an action plan. They have divided it into different levels according to the phase of the wave we are in. How severe do we think the wave is? They've categorized them into yellow, amber, orange, and red. They have done this on the basis of positivity rate, new cases, average number of oxygen beds occupied. So this was meant to give out a publicly available framework to the general public so that nobody has any confusion on what measures would be applicable when, what restrictions would be applicable when, what would be shut down when. Even though, according to this, we should be somewhere in the red category, Delhi is still following restrictions of the yellow category. even though they are not sticking to what they have written. Maybe because they don't think we are in a stage of the wave where such harsh restrictions are warranted. So some of them are pretty good. They have, from the starting, they have restricted social gatherings, they have restricted marriages and funerals to 20 people, they have prohibited other gatherings, they have shut down religious places, they have closed schools. But some of them don't make a lot of sense. They want to put night curfews. Night curfews have been proven again and again to not work. It does not make sense to waste state capacity on a measure, to waste police force, to harass people on a measure that does not work. Because if you are restricting gathering of people, so restricting some time from the night part does not make sense. Restricting movement during a part of the day does not make sense, because we have already restricted gatherings, we have already restricted people meeting with each other. Instead, what should we aiming at? We should be aiming at spreading out the people so that people do not come out at one time. They should be spread out. So I would basically advocate for essentials being open 24 hours so that I can go at maybe 4 in the morning so that I don't have to stand in a queue, be around other people, be in a crowd. And Delhi has also started following the weekend curfew from this weekend. The same logic. There is no use restricting people from going out on a weekend, because we are going in the opposite direction. Instead of putting people and dispersing crowds to a larger time frame, we are now restricting them. We are now restricting people who would have went out to get their groceries, do a little shopping, go to shops, maybe do some of their work on the weekend, when they would have known that this place would be a little empty as compared to the weekdays. Now we are forcing them to do all of that on weekdays, and that doesn't make sense. They've also shut down non-essential delivery of items, online deliveries. So if we shut down non-essential items, you're not giving a way to providers, to shopkeepers, to manufacturers to sell their goods and pay salaries to their employees, pay taxes. So India does not have a very good social net. So we cannot afford to give out people who cannot afford food, who cannot afford rent. We cannot give them assurances. We cannot give them money. So if you remember what happened during the first wave, a lot of laborers, a lot of migrant labor migrated from big cities to smaller cities. That was because our cities, our states were not able to provide them with some kind of sustenance. So we should not put measures that will lead to more harm than benefit. Yeah, and I think some plan like this, which is followed and given out by all state governments, can be beneficial to the public, so that I can know when I can open my shop, when can my manufacturing unit open. I can plan my schedule around that. I can plan my savings around that. I can see how can I work around the schedule, the restrictions the government is planning to put. And putting something like this out in the public, putting your plan out in the public domain and accepting feedback on that will help the state governments make more logical, rational plans that are more suited to our country.
Right. Thank you, Harsha. That was actually quite well framed response, because at the end of the day, what matters to us the most is how flexible we are with the changing times, right? Because at this point in time, we can't afford to have our economy shut down. We can't have small businesses or medium businesses or anyone for that matter to go out of business. Like you talked about the migrant worker situation that happened in the first wave. and we can't afford to have another lockdown. So having the state governments and the union government, put out frameworks that takes feedback from the public and does the changes according to the need of the hour is extremely important. So Harshit, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. Thank you for answering all the questions that I asked and for giving such really well-rounded as well as extremely structured answers. Thank you for joining me today. And to my listeners, I hope you guys had fun and I hope you learned something new today. Harshit, do you have something to add before we end this?
Yeah, thanks Priyat for having me. I would like to thank my colleague Mehak at Takshashila, who helped in a lot of inputs in this podcast. And to everybody listening, stay safe, mask up, and take care of yourself and your loved ones.
Thank you.
If you liked our show, don't forget to check out other interesting podcasts on the IVM network. You can tune into them on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow IVM on social media. The handle is @IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And hey, if you'd like to dive into Takshashila's research on technology, strategy, and economic affairs, check us out at our Twitter handle @TakshashilaINST or our website takshashila.org.in.
If you love cricket, listen up. The Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast is here for you. Hosted by DJ, Varun, and me, Ashwin, we bring a fun, fresh fan's point of view to talking all things cricket. Sometimes it's just the three of us, sometimes we have guests, including current and former international cricketers. For new episodes every week, check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast on the IVM app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed?